Well, I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, I guess I had a lot of things to say, so and stuff that's actually more valuable.
Maybe it
than my
is.
reaction. So
James got talking the last time, so
with
we.
the woman that was going by, she
She was nice.
She actually got talking more than
Yeah.
She was very interested in what Pauline was doing. She thought those were tomatoes, and there's such a thing as cherry tomatoes. A little bit early to get that much of a crop of tomatoes, at least here.
Well, I don't know. Last year, maybe. Like I was pointing out my nasturtiums
Yeah.
that have just started blooming today,
Yeah.
which is incredible. It's already August the 2nd, and they just started blooming.
And your experience is you can make salads out of them starting when, would you say?
The end of June.
Holy smokes, it is late.
Yeah, very late.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I always plant them from seed, so nothing different that way.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, are they ever taking their time?
There we go. But Pauline ends up putting these in salads and stuff like that. But there are worse things to prepare in salads. Nasturtiums, right?
I don't know
You
why.
go out and snip them. Well, I'm just recommending if people grow nasturtiums, why not chow down them?
Yeah.
Just make sure they're well washed and so on and so forth.
Maybe
But,
tomorrow I'll make you a flower salad.
Yeah, there you go. It's really attractive looking, you know.
It is.
And
you eat with your eyes first.
it tastes plenty fine. It's not, it's not as attractive a taste as eating fruit or something like that. It's as good as anything in a salad, probably better than some things. You got kale salad sometimes. Pauline makes a kale salad. So here we go. The object of this Marlene Rempel. Picture of her on the back. And the Kjrich and me. So what is that? This would be blah. This is Plattdeutsch, or as the High Germans say, Plattdeutsch. So that's Low German. Platt is low. Platt, Low German dialect. In High German, it'd be Kjrich, spelled with a G on the end. The Low Germans make it into a CH. And that's similar to the Dutch. Fact is, Low German seems to me to be closer to Dutch than it is to High German. Actually, Dutch, if you listen to it, that word, it's very close to Deutsch, isn't it? Basically means the same thing, at least initially. EN is like IN in German, High German, and IN in English as well. Krieg or war. In mich, it is in High German, mich. In English, it's me, but it's spelled M-E, and I suspect it's pronounced somewhat like the English. Without I don't know how to pronounce J. I'll say ik nicht wel dat do ik woud ik wel dat do ik niet. So that's what I don't will or want, that do I. What I will or want, that do I not. So it's that's the war in her, or what she would say in Christ or Christian. It's basically spelled Christ, but that's the German, as I recall, for Christian, High German and Low German. So this is in Plattdeutsch or Plattdeutsch, and it's about 130 pages of stuff, and I've been basically teaching myself Low German. I've already started it, but this has been a very good exercise. And what I've done with most of the pages, I've gone through it all, reading. Most of the pages I've translated, this page I translated very few things, but word for word, this page, maybe half of it. But these two pages, every word translated into, not English, into High German. The ones that are exactly like High German, I have translated into English. So let me see if I can. So Geist which is the equivalent of something like ghost in English. Geist in High German is something like Geist. So they don't just change G's at the end of words to sound, like the in Bach. There are two different sounds in German for CH and so, but it just depends on context. But you just got to go through and let me see, man is not M-A-N-N as in High German, or M-A-N as it is. It means man, basically. It means a few other things, but in M-A-N in English, it's M-A-U-N. Mound, maybe is how they pronounce it, something like that. So is in English, it's I-S. In Plautdeutsch, it's E-S. And in High German, it's ist, I-S-T. So, but most of the pages I've gone through and translated every word. I'm just trying to find, Testament I've left the same, because it would be the same in English and in High German. In High German, it's the Old Testament is Alt Testament. Here in Plautdeutsch, it's O-O-L-E. You wouldn't necessarily know that it's old or alt, A-L-T. O-O-L-E, Ola, probably something like that. Gott, I put God in there because it's G-O-T-T in Low German and in High German. So there I just put the English in there, God. Jesus is the same, so what I put is Joshua. Sometimes I abbreviate it to Josh, but if you don't believe me that Jesus is Joshua, it's just the Greek version of Joshua. Just do a little checking, and it's good that you're skeptical, but please don't be cynical.
Hey.
It's too easy.
Going in my...
But I know one person who claims to have a working knowledge of a variety of different languages, French, maybe a little bit of Blackfoot, Spanish, Arabic, and working knowledge of French. And she seems to think that once, the languages are related so much together that, once you know one language, at least that's related to other languages, you can just pick up the vocabulary. I am telling you. It is hard. Like, how would you know Romans? So this is the book of Romans in the New Testament. In German, High German, you'd have a little bit of trouble because it's R-O, I'm sure it's with two dots indicating umlaut, over the O, M-E-R, Römer. You wouldn't necessarily think R-O-M-E-R means Romans, right? No. But here's how it's spelled in Plautdeutsch, R-E-E-M-A. It's related. You can see that afterwards. But you're not, if you're just looking at this, you're not going to figure. So, übrige, which means kind of like the remaining, or the rest of whatever. It's spelled U-B-R-I-G-E in High German. How is it spelled in Low German? A with the umlaut over, two dots over the A. W-A-J-E. So the U, I think the U would have an umlaut in the High German. The umlauted U changes to umlauted A. The B changes to a W. There's a E put in there. Then you've got, oh my God, the R just gets, well, it's indicated by the A. That's what the A is there for after the W. It indicates it takes place of the R. That's an übrige. Then there's no I, and the G changes to a J. And the only thing that's similar is the E at the end of it. Übrige, ewige, uveja, uveja. How are you going to tell that? It doesn't matter if it's spelled or if it's pronounced, it would be even worse. So folk is the same, V-O-L-K. That's what it is in German. In English, it's folk, so I put folk in there. So part. In German, I'm sure they have that word part, P-A-R-T. That's High German. English is P-A-R-T. I doubt if it's actually a Germanic word originally. What do? To replace the A, the R, they put an A in there. So, and then they replace the A in part with an O. So it's P-O-A-T. How would you know P-O-A-T is part?
Yeah.
Welt is the same, that's world. You'd see A-U-S, that's a good German word. It's kind of like the equivalent, you'd say it aus, but it's like the English word out. That's a good High German word. But in Low German, it's kind of like where it replaces High German, A-L-S, which is like as in English, aus. It's like aus the Juden, but they'd say it aus. Aus, as the Jews got the Messiah, Messias is what they say, Kriegen or Kreigen, Kreigen is how they say it, Kreigen, yeah, wow, it's just crazy. So Kriegen as a verb in High German means to get. I don't know what that has to do. Here's another one, Nuscht. I believe it's the equivalent of the High German, one equivalent of the High German, nicht. But what they've done is they've taken the sh sound and make it sh. Slight difference. And then they put a U in there. It's not nicht, it's nuscht. So how are you going to tell that? You know? It seems like more like noshing something or whatever. Mit is M-E-T, met. First time I met that, there I'm going, what does it mean? I had to study it, find it out through context. Law in High German, Gesetz. TZ at the end. What is it in Low German? Jesaz. Jesaz, or Yesaz. I don't know how they pronounce that S before a vowel. In German, an S before a vowel is pronounced like a Z. Gesaz. Gesetz. How are you going to figure the one for the other? Für, which is somewhat like English, F-O-R, for. F-U, umlautet, R. In Plautdeutsch, F-A, fa. But the A indicates in many cases that there is an R that has been dropped off. So that you notice patterns like that. Buchstabe. Buchstabe in High German. That's Buchstabe. It would be the cognates, but it's Buach stove. Stove. Buach stove. How would you know Stab? Stab is S-T-O-V-W. S-T-A-B-E. How would you know? Good luck with that. I would really like to do an exercise with that woman who's saying, oh yeah, I mean this is close. This is closer to English than High German is. So good luck with that. She just didn't have enough respect for languages. Really, none at all. Saying that she had knowledge of Arabic. After a year and a half of me tutoring her for 2 hours a week, every Wednesday, kind of like afternoon. After a year and a half of that, and understand that's more. That's like, she should have been doing the work in between times. That's like lecture time. It's quality time lecture time. Because lecture time, there isn't the interaction you get, like you get with tutoring. She couldn't tell the difference. This is after a year and a half of 2 hours a week. So what is that? That's like 75 sessions, 2 hours, 150 hours. How much lecture time do you get in what is it, like 26 hours in a typical semester or something like that? What was that, like 6 semesters? It's got to be more than that. What is it? It's like 2.5 hours a week for 12 weeks. 2.5, 12. It's 2.5 times 12 is 5 times 6 is 30. So I gave her 50 hours of tutoring time, which is better than lecture time. So that's like, what am I saying, 50 hours? I was giving her 5 classes, semester classes, and she couldn't tell the difference after that time between the Arabic consonant F and the Arabic consonant Q. Couldn't tell. I can remember at that point I was ready to pull the plug because I said, we were looking at, I think it was an F. She says it's a Q, right? And I was saying, okay, no, it's this way. So, next sentence. Do. It's a Q. Oh, that's an F. No. So she hadn't even grasped it when I corrected her from a minute or two before. Folks,
Well,
respect
languages are much harder for other people than they are for you, apparently, because you can just whiz through them somehow. I don't know
Well,
how
one
you
of the
do
things
it.
you got to do is you got to respect the language. That's what I do. So you've seen me do German crosswords, puzzles, again and again and again. They're easier for me because I actually believe in memorization.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe in memorization by rote. What is rote? R-O-T-E, not
Well,
W-R-O-T.
I think with most people, languages, they treat languages like they're a tourist or something going through them. And with you live them. You're going, you'll sit down and that's
Are
what
you
you're
listening,
reading
folks?
for
Because what I say
amusement
to myself
is that, right?
is language is life. If you're not going to live it, don't bother. Don't bother. Eh? But you're recommended, if you're interested in learning a language, or preferably several languages, to learn memory techniques. There's a guy called Harry Lorraine, I'm sure he's long dead, and one of his acolytes called Bill Bradley, who was actually a Rhodes Scholar and a very successful professional basketball player, Bill Bradley. And they both recommending using memory techniques. And I'm not actually that good. They've got ways of memorizing people's faces. I'm not very good at memorizing people's faces. But I am fairly good if I really concentrate on memorizing their names, because they had a technique for memorizing words and names. I adopted that. If I'd been a politician, I would have been using their technique for memorizing people's faces, plus names. Can you imagine how good a politician you'd be? You're going around pressing hands and you'd be saying, hey dude, I recognize you from wherever else, and your name is Jubilation T. Corbin, like that was 5 years ago, like, and the person would say, well, you got my vote. That's simple. But yeah, get some memorization techniques. Don't learn by rote. In other words, by constant repetition. Now, you might have to repeat stuff, but if you use a memorization technique, there will be an end to the process. So people sometimes, like when I'm talking to them, sometimes there's just too much information. Like sometimes I use the joke, I'm a little bit like that movie title, The Man Who Knew Too Much. Sometimes I just know too much about stuff, and I can overwhelm people with the amount of stuff I know that they don't give a flying you-know-what about. And they'll say, you must have a photographic memory, and I'll say, anything but. I had something a little bit like that when I was younger, but as you get older, it's less and less photographic. And when I say a little bit, only a small portion. But I find that when I'm learning a word in the language, sometimes I have to use the memorization technique like 7 times or whatever. It doesn't stick. And the thing that really makes it effective is your emotions get involved, and the emotion kind of burns it into your memory. And the emotion is anger with myself. I'll say, this is about the 7th time I've gone through this, and I haven't memorized it. And that's seems to do the trick. Maybe the trick is to get mad at yourself after the, at the second time. I know I used the memory technique for this and so on and so forth. But you are recommended to learn not just one language, but at least expose yourself to several other languages. You won't have this silly idea that, learning a language is, it's easy, like one language is related to another and so on and so forth. You can what that prompts is, I don't have to do it because I could do it any old time. It's not really something worth doing. Understand, if you're interested in doing history, if you're interested in looking at religious studies, if you're looking at different cultures, so on and so forth, if you just want to understand what's happening in your favorite or least favorite opera, it helps actually understand other languages. Fact is, when it comes to history and religious studies, it's an absolute essential. I don't want to listen to people flap their gums about history or politics or stuff like that. Particularly religious studies, flap their gums about that stuff when they don't know the requisite languages. I'm not the least bit interested in what you've got to say because, frankly, it's not interesting. It is so full of irrelevance. People talking about jihad, meaning struggle or stuff like that. You have no clue. Go and look at how languages are. You've got to accept that there are secondary meanings. What are secondary meanings? The guy who taught me Latin was spot on. He would mark you down. He would say, when you're doing translation, you can actually do transliteration on this particular word. He wouldn't say what the transliteration was. But there are certain words in Latin that mean the same thing. They're basically the same word written on the page as the English word that came from. But he would say in most cases he's right. The English uses a derived meaning for that word. And so you got to be careful. Like here's one where it actually hasn't made it into English. But seize the day. Have you ever run across that? He gave us the exercise. It actually comes from, I believe, Horace. Seize the day. And it's carpe diem. Diem is day in the objective case. So it's an object. So it is the object of a verb. In this case, transitive verb. In this case, carpe. And it is carpe is in the imperative, and so it is ordering someone to do it. You don't, in Latin, you wouldn't even have to use the pronoun you or thou. But imperative in English, you don't have to use it. Do this. You can say you do this, but you don't have to do it. So it's you, carpe, seize. But is it really that? He said, see if you can come up with a different translation for that. And so, he's actually talking about drinking wine and that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. In context is important. And you know what? My translation was sip the day. Because he's actually talking about kicking back. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Kicking back. He's talking about wine. So, sip the day. Understand, there are many different meanings for words. And the big trouble with words that we borrow from other languages, especially from something like Latin or to a large extent Greek, we're going to be using a secondary, tertiary, quaternary meaning of the word from Latin. And it has almost nothing to do, aside from the derivation, with the original meaning in Latin. It's the same sort of thing with jihad. Jihad originally means struggle, but the way it's used, it means war. Fight war, okay? The verb war. So as I've mentioned before, it's used in parallel cases in the Quran. Jihad in the way of Allah. But the parallel passages go katala, something like that, some form of that. Qatala, I believe is how it goes, in the way of Allah. That's parallel sort of stuff. What does katala mean originally? Kill. Okay? Kill, struggle. Which one is it? Well, it's a particular type of killing. It's what killing you do in a war. Jihad is a particular type of struggle that you do. It's a struggle or fight that you do in a war. That's how you figure things out. And that's why you got to know the language. Otherwise, you're going, well, this is what people say. They say that Islam means peace. It's derived from, I think it's salama, to be peaceful. I don't know where the accent comes there. Salama in the Semitic languages. Arabic is a Semitic language. Hebrew is a Semitic language. The cognate in Hebrew is shalom, peace. Salam is what it is in Arabic, something like that. Hopefully you can hear the similarity. But so it's SLM. And in the Semitic languages, you put things before those things, you put before those consonants, you put them between the consonants, you change the vowels in the consonant, you put things afterwards. You can put an M before there with a vowel. So Muslim means someone who surrendered. It acts peacefully but under constraint. So it's got the SLM, you put the M in front of it, and it's someone who behaves in this fashion. So it actually comes from Islam. What does Islam mean? It doesn't mean peace. It's derived from a verb meaning something like to be peaceful. But you got to be careful. Derived words can mean quite different things from the words that they're derived from. So what does Islam mean? It means to surrender. It means surrender. Submit. Now, the example that I use is there's a Latin word called pax. P-A-X. Pax Romana or something like that. What does that mean, Romana? Yeah. It means the Roman peace. Pax. And it probably originally it was P-A-C-S. And then they just used an X to write the CS. Because you derive from it, you get something like pacification. It should be something like pacificatio in the Latin, so you'd pronounce the C like a K. But we say it pacification, P-A-C. That means peace. That root. But does pacification mean peace? You know, the Americans were doing pacification in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Afghanistan starting 2001, in Iraq starting 2003. And I am telling you, the means that they were using were anything but peaceful. An example is with submission. Islam is supposed to mean submission. Surrender. Let's think of a submission hold in wrestling. Well, a submission hold in wrestling is not peaceful. Submission is reacting peacefully to constraint. So Islam does not mean peace. Muslim does not mean someone who practices peace. But get that straight. Someone is going around saying that Islam means peace, doesn't know anything about Arabic, or they do know